Let's go to National Senate Leader Bridget McKenzie now joining me in Wodonga. Bridget, look, let's start with Barnaby Joyce. It was a poor analogy. You're of the land. You know plenty of people who are familiar with bullets and guns and magazines, but in a political attack, it's a poor analogy, isn't it?
Well, it is, and he's apologised. I think what Barnaby was expressing is the frustration of thousands and thousands of Australians with the renewable rollout, and exhorting them to take that frustration to the ballot box so that this government understands their frustrations in a clear political sense. And he's apologised, which is the appropriate response. But the issue still remains that these people and these communities need to make sure that this government is left in no uncertain terms of an understanding of the impact their policy decisions are having on them, particularly in places like the Hunter and the Illawarra.
Sure, he's saying get rid of the Prime Minister. He's saying, sure, get rid of Chris Bowen. No doubt he's going to continue to come under attack from the ABC and the Greens and the Prime Minister calling for him to be sacked. Is there any chance that that David Littleproud or yourself or others in the Nats will try and to have him demoted or sacked in any way for this?
Honestly, Chris, what a joke. This is a Prime Minister who has failed to uphold the Westminster Ministerial conventions with his own ministerial team. He's holding up some stability, gold star award over this reshuffle when in fact he's ignored the clear conflict of interest that have been publicly reported of his ministers with shareholdings that they have failed to disclose. He's failed to sack purely incompetent ministers time and time again.
Well, let me pick up on that point.
This
is the point I made at the outset. When it comes to the substance of this reshuffle, there are two killer points. One is I was staggered. I was very pleased to hear on Sunday that Giles and O'Neill had been given the flick. But it's staggering that the Prime Minister doesn't admit that they've failed. I mean, he's given no explanation for getting rid of these ministers. He's pretending, therefore, that the government's doing OK in immigration and border protection.
He's pretending somehow he's doing us all a favour by moving incompetence A, incompetent B to another portfolio to be summarily and similarly incompetent. I mean, Australians absolutely deserve better. When you look at Burke, he may have gotten best on ground from the CFMEU for his work in industrial relations, but his stats on border force and on stability and security of our borders when he held that ministerial portfolio in previous governments is appalling. So on any objective, rational analysis, this is a reshuffle that the union bosses and factional bosses have run their eyes right over. It is a political fix for Albo internally and for question time, and doesn't actually benefit the Australian people in any way, shape or form, or make the lot of their lives any more secure economically or physically.
Well, this is the point where it comes down to politics, right? There's no doubt that Tony Burke is a more experienced and more talented performer, especially in Parliament. He can handle the difficult issue cut and thrust very well.
Exactly.
But as an immigration minister, he was an abject failure at a tragic and traumatised time. Does that mean that Labor doesn't have anybody in their ranks to stand up and be strong on this issue? Because while we don't have a flood of boats now, they have started again, and this is the time to show real resolve, or we will have an absolute tragedy unfolding yet again.
Yeah, Chris, once again, you've hit the nail absolutely on the head. This is all about a political fix, right? This is all about Albo being able to make it through the next parliamentary sitting fortnight without having his failures and the failures of his government on immigration on the front pages again. This isn't actually about solving the problem, because if it was, he would have put someone with a level of competence. And this is what happens, Chris, when you don't have a merit-based process where the Prime Minister doesn't have the ability to appoint the people, the men and women he sees as most competent to the cabinet table, that you have to run your choices through the factions, you have to run your choices through the union bosses, which we know is exactly what happened over Friday and Saturday, because the Prime Minister told us all that he had to check with the factional heavies before he'd make his announcement on Sunday. This is what you get. You get a political fix, and Australians deserve better. This is a serious problem, because when you get it wrong, people lose their lives.
Yeah,
they lose them on sea because they're seeking to come here, or, as we've seen under Giles, we see criminals released into our communities and offences committed against Australians thanks to the decisions of Anthony Albanese's minister. So to say that they're somehow not culpable, that they're not responsible, beggars belief.
Indeed. Alleged offences at this stage, a lot of those matters before the courts. But thanks for joining us, Bridget McKenzie.
Of course,
I appreciate it.
Alleged offences.
Senator Bridget McKenzie there. This is a shambles. You can't admit failure through your actions and then deny failure.